Hey everybody, welcome to the Shut Up and Do It podcast, the place that you can come and hang out with us while we go through all things real estate with a focus on bringing you top quality topics and speakers, all who believe in a get it done manner. I'm your host, Nick Aalerud, creator of the Complete Deal Flow System and a principal with AA Real Estate Group, along with my partner and co-host, the Deal Flow expert, the lead gen machine, leader of Solutions Group, and broker and Esquire, Robbie Retzel. What's up, Rob?
Not much, man. I'm really excited about today's podcast. We have Justin, as you probably know, Nick. I have a little bit of a history with him. I actually started working with Justin as kind of a bird dog driving for dollars when I first got into real estate investing. So, yeah, I know Justin pretty well. He's got a very interesting business model you're not going to see a lot of people doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love being awkward too and talking about him in third person while he's hanging out.
Right? He's sitting right here.
Hello there, Justin.
Hello.
So Justin is on with us. He is a local investor. He's been actively investing in real estate since 2011. His company, JS2 Homes, focuses on rehabbing, redeveloping, and wholesaling homes in and around Boston. Justin's also the founder of Open Letter Marketing, a direct mail provider for real estate investors throughout the country. Talk about filling a niche there, man. It was absolutely needed. His specialized approach to direct mail enables his clients to generate higher response rate by separating themselves from their competition. So Justin, welcome to the show, man. We're happy to have you.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. This is great.
That's awesome. Why don't you start by just kind of going through, what even got you into real estate to begin with? Like, tell us your story.
Yeah, so my background's accounting. So I was doing the accounting gig, working at a private equity shop. My father has been a general contractor for about 45 years. Growing up, always saw the cool stuff that he was doing, building homes, adding square footage. And I always had kind of an artistic kind of interest. And I always felt that he was doing something artistic with basically building homes. So always wanted to get into it, but just didn't know how until HGTV. Flipping shows, started watching those. That really interesting. I loved that I could kind of marry both the construction side and the analytical side of working on deals. That was always my hope when I was in private equity, was to get to the deal side. I was more back office accounting. So real estate was like a perfect kind of transition to get me into the deal side and also work on the construction side. So I actually partnered with my father in 2011, not really knowing much about construction and actually how to build homes. So our partnership was, I found the deals, I did the analysis, and he would manage the project. And then over the years, he taught me basically everything that he knew, probably not everything, but so until I felt really comfortable kind of going on my own, and just continued kind of the journey.
That's awesome. So are you a GC now? Do you have your license?
I am not. So he still has his license. So we use his every so often, but that's something that is in the near future that I'm deciding if I should get or not.
Well, I wish you luck, because as luck would have it, I failed mine twice. Not that it was, I was really good at tests. I was really good SAT guy, but it is what it is. Open book exam. I wish you the best, sir.
Thank you. I hear it's tough.
Absolutely. Tough. Yeah, I've heard that too. You have like the perfect kind of marriage, I guess, of the skills that you need, that artistic side and also the number side, because so many people are lacking in one or the other, right? Especially you see that so much now. So that's cool.
Yeah. So it's been a fun journey. Still going through. The focus has changed over the years since I started. I mean, getting into it, starting out on kind of the lower end niche because it was just more affordable, less risk because we had less money in the deal. Yep. And as we got more comfortable, slowly working up that chain of mid-market, and now I'm mostly just doing higher-end homes, new construction, renovations, condo conversions in the city, while still wholesaling a lot of other deals out where it does fall into the mid-market or low market, because I just don't have the contractors now. I would be paying them way too much to be doing at kind of that level of work. So just wholesaling that out and maintaining where I kind of enjoy doing.
Yeah. It sounds like, that was definitely a challenge, right? To have that, you also had that challenge where you have to have your kind of lower level contractor, right? Your mid-level and then your higher end guy. And what's the triangle they say? The speed, quality, price, right?
Exactly. So, 2 out of 3.
2 out of 3 is not bad. What was your biggest challenge when you started? Well, I know you went full time, right? So talk about that decision and that transition from full-time work into being self-employed. Like, how did that feel for you? What prompted it? and what were your next 3 steps there?
Yeah, my intent, so growing up, my father owned his own company, my brother owns his own company, all my uncles own their own company. So I had entrepreneurship in the family, and my parents were, I always go back to my parents and say, if it wasn't for your support, I don't know if I would be doing what I'm doing right now and be doing it full time, because that was immensely helpful, and just to have that support. So when I started doing real estate, the whole intent was to do this full time. And my conservative approach, just because by nature I'm an accountant and I'm just conservative. So before I jumped full time, I knew, even though real estate was always really good for me, I needed consistency, and I wanted cash flow. I wanted to do it full time, but I needed that missing piece that I could get consistent cash flow and make sure that I wouldn't have to go, stretch myself to find the next deal, or get into a deal that the margins were too thin, but I just needed to get into something because, the last deal I did is kind of rolling off, or if there is a little bit of a downturn, having that stress. So basically, when I started doing real estate in 2011, I also did direct mail. And I did direct mail in a very unique fashion because I tracked every single thing that I did. If I changed an envelope color, I would track it. If I changed a font style, I would track it. So over the years, I became really good at finding deals with direct mail. I mean, 90% plus, that's how I'm finding deals. And when I went full time, I said, hey, I have a very unique opportunity where there's nobody else in the marketplace for real estate investors that's offering direct mail like this. And I know it works better because I did a huge test of over, I think, 100,000 mailers, my mailers versus a yellow letter. And I found that mine were getting 26.7% more responses than yellow letters. So that was basically the start to open letter marketing and the ability for me to feel comfortable enough to go full time. Because once I started the company up, the open letter marketing was kind of more of my cash flow engine, and my real estate was everything else, where I knew I wouldn't have to stress out about getting into any deals. I could really make sure that the numbers worked before I got into anything. That was a long about way to get to why I went full time, but that was all that was going through my head.
No, I mean, that's awesome. I mean, what is the biggest concern that people who want to go full time have is, what am I going to do, if I don't get a deal for 3 months, 6 months, something like that. So you kind of solve that problem right off the bat. That's awesome.
Yeah, that is cool. Even before open letter marketing, I guess, when you were doing real estate, what was your first step in kind of scaling your business? Did you immediately just ramp up your direct mail once you found out it worked, and you kind of were doing everything yourself still? You had your dad, right? But, kind of what were your steps there to scale up?
Yeah. Good question. It was definitely, there was a point in time where I said, if I wanted to go full time, I have to ramp something up. And there has to be kind of a cutoff of where, because if I start sending a lot more direct mail and I can't answer those calls, then I'm wasting money. So I was basically doing everything myself, answering calls in the morning, calling contractors at lunch, calling contractors after work, calling sellers back after work. I mean, I was doing a lot at night and on the weekends. So people that say you can get into it with no time investors, I don't know how they do it, because I certainly spent a lot of time figuring that stuff out. But it was just that I knew that I had to pay money to outsource things because I couldn't take everything on. And by outsourcing, I could ramp things up. And I was ramping them up in a way that wouldn't overload myself, and I could start layering on wholesaling. So when I got started, I just did rehabbing. I only started wholesaling because I had excess inventory that I knew I couldn't deal with, but was also I could make money on.
That's interesting. That's actually kind of opposite, right? A lot of people start wholesaling and move into the rehabbing side. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I think it was to my benefit and just my luck that it worked that way, because at the point that I did my first wholesale, I knew rehab numbers really, really well. So the two numbers that wholesalers, I think, have really difficulty with is estimating ARV, they're usually too high, and estimating construction costs, they're usually too low.
That's not been our experience. All of our wholesalers are usually right on point. Yeah.
That's what I find too.
You just adjust those numbers until the deal works.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
The adjustable spreadsheet, right? Yeah.
So that's something that after a couple of years of rehabbing and knowing what I'd actually sell for, location, types of features that you put into a property, those types of things I brought into kind of the wholesaling aspect. So I knew when I wholesaled it out, I knew the numbers really well and I could stand behind what I'm offering out. So that gained a lot of confidence in the people that I sold properties to, you guys included, that you knew that my numbers were accurate and that you had a higher confidence level with me.
Thank you, by the way, for that all the time.
Yeah, well, just going back to what you were saying about outsourcing everything. I mean, it's, it either costs time or money, but you got to do one or the other. You can't really, you have no time, then it's the money, right? So
that's exactly right. I always say there's time or money. Which one do you want to use?
And of course, as an entrepreneur, you have to focus on those highest dollar per hour activities, right? And outsource the rest.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. Time is my most limited resource and my most expensive resource. So I'd much rather leverage other people's time and experience to reduce it on my side.
Absolutely. It brings me, when I first started, when I was working at the bank, right? It was nights and weekends, man. After that restart with all my Minnesota crap, I was literally knocking on doors, Somerville, Cambridge, and they say, oh, you can do this with no time and no money and this and that. I don't know, man. I had to knock on probably 15 doors a night and then spent all my Saturdays and Sundays calling people. I had no life, no social life. And so I totally relate with that. And once you finally get the business going and you get that income and you get an understanding of, what I need to do to try to help save time, right? Your dollar per hour can kind of increase at that point. That's awesome. What about the transition from when you went to that, small rehab deals into that most mid-grade and then the eventual, new construction and then huge, inner city of Boston, the big city development stuff that you guys going on. What transitions did you make to kind of get to those levels?
My transitions are slower, I think, than most. Again, I'm very conservative, so anytime I do something new, it has to be a slam dunk. So I knew from the beginning that I loved the details of construction. I loved millwork. I loved the design. I really like that stuff. So I knew high end is where I ultimately where I wanted to go. So just carving a path on how to get there. I knew taking a jump every time I took a jump up in price point, it would have to be a slam dunk. So it had to be a really good deal. The numbers had to look really, really big for me because I knew I was going to make mistakes. There's no question about making mistakes. I knew that I was going to make them. So I just said, all right, I'm going to make mistakes. It's going to cost a lot more than I think it's going to cost. So that means the deal has to be more profitable than I otherwise would take it on if it was kind of within my range where I'm going right now. So every step of the way, I would just look for those deals and whenever I wanted to make that step. And when I took the step, every step I always did a number of deals within that bracket until I got comfortable. Because there would be other things that you wouldn't even think about. So going from entry-level to mid-level homes. Entry-level homes, people are buying first-time home buyers. They love it coming into a house that's just renovated. They really don't have, if it's fully renovated, they don't really ask too many questions or push at all about, oh, that's not the right light fixture that I really like, or this isn't the granite that I want. They're just happy that it's renovated, it's their first house, they're excited. As you move up the chain, the buyers have a huge amount of say on how the finished product is and how it's going to be perceived and actually how quickly it's going to get sold. So on the high-end properties, always, and every time I take that step, I leverage really experienced real estate agents in that specific area to find out exactly what buyers are looking for, what are the needs, what are the wants, and everything. So I'm approaching it with somebody that's already been in that kind of that marketplace for much longer than I have. And I found that's given me a lot more confidence to go up to the different notches, to use them, and also to make sure I have enough profitability when I do make mistakes.
How did you find those brokers? In those, you mentioned, so you use brokers and agents in different areas that you kind of buy and sell in. What tips could you give people as to how to find these people, and what to ask them once you do find them?
Yeah, one thing that for me, numbers say more than people, because someone can tell you anything, but until you actually verify what they're saying, I don't know, it doesn't mean much to me. So I always start from kind of the number side, and I have access to the MLS. So I always pull in what is in the last 12 to 24 months within this price range, and that show me all the sold homes. And then I take all those sold homes and I can export that from the MLS, and it will attach the listing agent's name to them. And then I just put it into like a pivot table and find out how many times a single agent shows up multiple times. And I just start calling from top down, from the people that sold the most amount of properties. And usually what I'll see is if they have sold like new construction homes. So when I'm doing new construction, I'll always look for the agents that have worked with builders, because not only do they know kind of the builder model a little bit better, but they're used to selling that type of product. And you have the dual benefit of usually those agents will also bring builders like maybe land or dilapidated properties that you can kind of build up. So it's kind of a dual purpose.
That's cool. What's the all-time question, right? What's in it for them? So what do you bring to them to kind of make that the relationship worth their while?
They're listing it on the back end. I will always let them list it on the back end, because that's exactly right. Don't come to the table and ask for something when you can't give value back. So I'll always have them list my properties on the back end. I'd rather forgive the 2.5% that I otherwise would save for their experience and they can tell me, because that will save me a lot more money in the future. And they'll probably actually make me more money just on their input on either floor plan design, what buyers want, their network of buyers already. There's just so many more benefits that they can add.
How about, what was your biggest challenge to overcome in real estate?
Contractors. So
yeah, really great, and they know what they're doing, and they're on time all the time, right?
No doubt contractors have been the number one challenge. And I would say more so in the low to mid range, because the contractors that you're hiring, like we said before, you can't hire the same contractor for the different levels, because they're going to either be really high end, low end, or mid range. To push them to do things that they're not used to doing is going to either you're going to pay too much or you're going to pay for it in the finish, and it's not going to be up to the standards. So the lower to mid-range contractors, you're paying them less money typically. Much more difficult in that range for me to find good contractors that will stay on budget, that will show up all the time. You have a lot more babysitting. That was a huge issue for me. And I mean, a contractor scammed me out of tens of thousands of dollars, and I ended up having to go to grand jury to prosecute him. He's been in jail for 10 years. I think he just got out.
Wow.
But big stuff. So that stuff happens, but I've created procedures to make sure. And he even had, I gathered insurance documents. He forged all those. So that was insurance fraud. So he did way above and beyond. That was really crazy. So
we call that being in the shit.
Yeah. Exactly.
Wow.
So that was another kind of, another benefit to going to the higher end is in the higher end, I'm paying contractors more. They're more responsible. They usually have more of a management mindset, where a lot of contractors, low to mid-level, they're usually good at construction, but they're not good at management. So management of time, management of money, all of that. When you go up the bracket, usually the contractors will be good both at managing their team and managing the time, managing the budget, all of that, so you don't have to do as much babysitting. So that's kind of gotten me out of the weeds a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, unless you want to stay on that topic, I kind of wanted to shift gears a little bit, if that's okay. So, okay. So this is kind of, what we're trying to do with the podcast is really focused on Massachusetts and New England, kind of get as hyper-local as we can. So I wanted to ask you, where do you think we are right now in the cycle?
Good question. I think it depends on areas. So I wouldn't say necessarily town by town, but areas. So for instance, the last number of deals that I've done are in the city. The prices are crazy high. I don't know how much more they're going to go up. I think 2018, we're looking pretty good. After that, I'm not sure what's going to happen, if there's going to be a dip or if it's going to be stagnant and not move. But I'm figuring that we're kind of near the top. For most of the markets, they're going to they might have a little bit more room in some areas than not. And an example here is so just looking at South Boston versus Dorchester, right? South Boston price points are selling on new construction, 700 to 850 a square foot. Dorchester, they might be around 400, 350, depending on where it is. But that's increasing. That's still increasing. And it seems like a bargain when it's right next door to South Boston. People are looking at, I can get so much of a larger place in Dorchester than South Boston for, cheaper. So those prices are still moving, I think, faster than South Boston is. So I guess it really depends on kind of where you're looking and where you're doing deals. But overall, I would say that we're pretty close to the top.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting. It's so local then, what you're saying, because even within Dorchester, I mean, you can go to places obviously that are not great. They're condo conversion. It kind of goes street to street almost. They're just kind of neighborhood.
We have a property on the market right now in Dorchester, and we were like, if we could sell these at $399 each unit, it's a 2-family, like we'll be pumped. And first day that we had open house, we got an offer for $430. So we're like, holy, like that's crazy. So yeah, just prices are still moving. Even South Boston, we had our agents lined up, and they were like, oh, we think you can get this price. And now, like 4 or 5 months later, we got an offer for like $125,000 more for that one unit. So it's
crazy.
It's incredible.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thanks for answering that. I think we're pretty much on the same page. It's definitely neighborhood to neighborhood what we're finding now.
Yeah.
To follow up, how is your business model changing? Like, are you doing more wholesaling in the hotter market?
Yeah, that's a really good question. My business model has changed from doing a lot more rehabs, new construction, to wholesaling most properties and just taking, I guess, the best of the best deals to myself where margins are really big. Ideally, I'd like to have more short-term deals.
Right.
But most of my deals are in Boston now, and pretty much everything has to go through zoning. So I have to assume that it's going to be a 12-month turnaround for the whole project, close to close. But the profitability in Boston is just so much greater that it still would make sense, even if there is a dip. Yep. I think the largest dip back in 2008, 2009 was 8% in Boston. So every deal that I go into, I'm always going, all right, what's my ARV minus 10%? I'll always have that function in there. And if the deal still looks good enough for me, I'll still do it. But otherwise, I'm wholesaling a lot more just because there's other investors that are very eager for deals and might not look at a shift like I am, and they're willing to spend a lot more money. So my my wholesale spreads are increasing as kind of since last year. They've been increasing because people will spend a little bit more money on the deal.
Sure. Especially in Boston too, right? I mean,
yes.
Yes.
Well, the more and more seminars that get pumped in Boston with these national guys coming in, the more and more investors are to pay more for our deals. So
exactly.
It is what it is. It sounds like the huge benefit, though, you also had, Justin, is that, being that you came from, your whole business was structured around deal flow and around marketing and around lead generation. So the fact of the matter is you are able to pick and cherry pick the best deals you have because you have these things coming in, whereas investors that, see an HGTV show and want to get into flipping, right? They're really like, well, this is great. Let me get into the deal. And they're just looking and looking and looking, right? So the supply that you're bringing to the table is all because of your marketing background, your marketing expertise that you've learned to do, right? And really grind it out.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's a point in time where I think most investors will realize that this business, marketing is a huge engine for their business. If they don't have any deal flow, they don't have a business. So looking at it from that perspective, you need to know marketing. You need to be very good at marketing. You need whether it's you're doing direct mail or you're doing cold calling or you're networking with real estate agents, other investors, other wholesalers, whatever type of marketing it is, you have to be good to make sure that you consistently get that deal flow because that's what's going to keep you in business and keep the deals. So that is the one most important thing that I see a lot of investors don't put a lot of effort or time into when they absolutely should, because that is what's going to keep your business afloat and keep those deals coming in.
Absolutely. It's the difference between having a business and having a hobby, as they always say. I realize you can't just buy off the MLS. First of all, the competition is ridiculous, and there just aren't enough deals. It's impossible to scale if that's all you're doing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, that's awesome. Cool, man. What would be a great piece of advice you would have to give to a business owner or real estate investor starting out?
So if I was to do it again and I didn't have my father to kind of leverage off his experience, I would partner with an experienced investor getting into it. So again, going back to if you're looking for help, what value can you add? I would say focus on finding a deal. A lot of people will focus on money first. How are they going to finance it? How are they going to do this? How are they going to do that? You're not going to do anything until you find a deal. Focus on finding a deal and then partner with an investor to either walk through the property with you, to do the rehab with you, to actually help you wholesale it, do all those things, because the amount of experience that you're going to gain from what they're doing is going to be much, much more. They're going to make sure that your learning curve is significantly reduced because they're going to show you the right way to do it so you can kind of get into it and understand a little bit better. So if I was to do it again, I would definitely partner with an experienced investor.
That's absolutely awesome advice because when you first get into it, even if you go to the guru courses, there's so many different things. If you want to rehab a house, even if you want to wholesale something, there's so many things.
Right. There are like such little nuances that people don't like. Wholesaling itself seems pretty easy, but there are little nuances that will make a wholesale from a good wholesale to a really good wholesale in terms of profitability and ease. People can wholesale, but to wholesale for larger spreads and to make it a really easy, 2 hours into the wholesale and you already got it sold.
Yeah.
Those types of things you'll gain from people's experience and people that have been doing it. So that's where leveraging off an experienced investor will take you from just kind of doing a wholesale to doing a really good wholesale based on profitability and reducing your time into the deal.
Absolutely. And so you're working a lot, like you said, in Boston now. Are you doing things where you're kind of bringing it through permitting and then wholesaling?
So if I'm bringing it through permitting, I'm usually taking the deal on, but that's not to say that I wouldn't bring it through permitting and wholesale it out.
Justin, how can they get a hold of you and what's the best way they can kind of reach you?
Yeah, they can reach out to me at justin@js2homes.com. They can always check out js2homes.com or openlettermarketing.com. They can also check out my blog, which I haven't updated in a while, but it's 3 years of taking everybody through the numbers, the financials, all of my deals from when I started at thebostoninvestor.com.
We really, really appreciate it, man. Open Letter Marketing, what an incredible service for investors across the country. Really looking to amp up your direct mail and you want to try to help automate it, Justin provides an incredible, incredible service. It also would selfishly complements our complete deal flow system as well because it's man, if I could find a way to have automated that a long time ago, I 100% would have. Justin, thanks for being on here today, man.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. This was great.